Hey everyone, it's Natalia, and today I'm here to make myself a set of very over-the-top nails. To go with this hand needs a matching hand. That's right, I'm going to be making some ridiculous twice Jeongyeon nails, so let's get going with that. So first off, we're going to be prepping these nail tips. These are some long squares. I have no idea what these nail tips are made out of. Like, I don't know if they're soft gel or ABS or whatever. I've had them for years. I don't even remember buying them. But it is what it is. These are some long squares of what I wanted to use. So because of that, I'm going to actually be using some base gel. But the tip prep will remain pretty much exactly the same as if I was using soft gels. Which is to first, we got to file off any little nubbins from the mold process. And then after that, because we still want the base gel to sit nicely, we're going to buff every single nail with a buffing block so that it is nice and matte looking. I have seen like some people use like chemical etchers and stuff, and I want to try them out, but every time I go to buy one from Sweet Nail Supplies, there's like Creer makes one, I think. They're always sold out, so I haven't bought it yet, but I want to try it, see how it works. But anyway, we're just going to buff all these nails off. We want it to be super matte, no shine left on these bad boys. And that's sort of like adding basically like micro tears. It's the best way I can think about it in like the nail so that stuff will stick to it. It's like when you're doing pottery, you need to like etch it to put two pieces of clay together so that they sort of like lock together. That's what we're doing on like a very microscopic scale with these nails. So after we buff those bad boys, we're going to wipe it off with alcohol. This is 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I buy it at the dollar store. So it's not really one of my pricier nail supplies. Alrighty. So once you're all prepped with that, we got to put a base coat on it. I'm using this zombie base gel. I've heard like really good things about it. I personally, I think it works great for base gel. I find it a little thick and tacky for application, and it has like a smell to it that I don't love. But as a base gel, it does work extremely well. And I've heard from other people who use it that its adhesion is incredible. So like if you're like using it as a base gel for Gel-X applications, it's like really good. But it works fine for my purposes. But as I said, the smell is a bit much for me. But anyway, we're going to get into the coloring. Everything is going to get a coat of the Jello JC71. It's this sort of like cream color. It's a white that sort of goes slightly into like a warm pink undertone. And for a rare situation in my nail doing, every single nail is getting the same white. A real easy base color situation happening today. I really I think this is from the Bubbly collection, I want to say. Yeah, it's from the Bubbly collection, and I really quite like the Jello cream colors. Though I do want to like try like a few cream colors from like different brands to see which ones I actually like the best. But I find like the Jello stuff to be very, it's like medium viscosity. I really enjoy it. And the price point is quite good for Korean gels. So once you've got that all nicely on there, stick it under the cure. So I'm not putting a second coat on every nail. I'm only going to be doing it on the ones that are going to have decals on them for reasons that will become very obvious very soon. So I'm doing decals on the middle finger and the pinky. So that is getting a second coat so that it's a nice fully opaque situation. And then we're going to stick that under the lamp for another full cure. And then we can get into the rather over-the-top decorations I've decided to do for these nails. So we're going to start on the thumb. Now, I'm matching this to some rhinestones. So I've mixed up the Yogurt Nail number 18, the It's Lit number 12, and the Mayo Peach Peach MB07 to make sort of a, like, it's not quite the right color, but it's close enough for the purposes of what I need it, which this is going to be the base of like a rhinestone pattern. So this was way too pink, like too much of a cool tone pink. So I'm adding in this from the Peach Peach collection, which is a great collection, by the way. And I'll have links to everything that I use down in the description box, so you can find everything you're looking for. Though most of this stuff does come from Sweetie Nail Supply, gel-wise anyway. On this thumb, we're going to be putting some like star elements. And I find the easiest way to paint a star is to make just a capital A and then just connect the points. And then fill in the middle. It hasn't served me wrong yet. So I wanted to do sort of like an offset star situation where some of them are hanging off the edge to make it seem sort of like a patterned piece of, a pattern that's just sort of on the nail. And I think it turned out really nicely. I think, frankly, like if I wasn't doing the steps that are about to follow, this nail would actually just be really nice with just, this design on it would be like a really nice, funky sort of like, I don't know, like 90s style nail. Like I think it would be really fun with like neon colors. But no, we're going to be doing something so ridiculous to these. And this is just basically what we're doing here is we're creating a guide, a color-toned guide to fill in with rhinestones afterwards. We're doing three fully rhinestoned nails on this thing. This nail set that we're doing here. And I'm not gonna lie. After I send this in for a cure, it's about to get tedious because we're going in with the Ivy Fix gel. Now for this nail, I think the way I did this was the best way for my purposes today. And I'm coating the entire nail in a thin coat of the Ivy Fix gel. I feel like if this wasn't the middle of winter and my house was a lot warmer, this nail would have been a lot more difficult to accomplish because as the weather is warmer, the gel gets a little bit, like looser and things slide around more. But since we're in the middle of winter and it wasn't super hot in here, it was a little easier. So I'm going in now with some rhinestones. Now, the way that I do this is I start with the biggest size and then move down to the smallest size. So just start sticking big rhinestones on and then move to medium size and then move to small ones and just sort of shove them around until they fully cover the pink stars that you would like them to. I'm not going to lie. The steps for making this did not take a small amount of time to do. I think each nail in this set that were the fully rhinestone nails took about, I want to say, 40 minutes per nail. I'm cutting out most of that because obviously watching someone sit around and painstakingly put every single rhinestone into place on every nail would be, well, I suppose like it would be probably relaxing, but I also did have to cut out me swearing a lot when things would go inexplicably wrong. And now I'm going to fill in the rest with these pearls. Now you're noticing that these pearls don't look super well organized. That's because I opened it up upside down once and they all got mixed together. So it's a bit of an adventure picking up all the rhinestones, all the little pearl charm situations here. But the same sort of thing applies. We're going to be covering the entire white portion in the rhinestones. The pearls. And just go from biggest size that you're using to smallest. This set of rhinestones I'm using comes with like really big ones that I personally, for the style of nails that I usually make, I'm not really sure when I'm going to be able to use them, but It was a good price. So I'll find a use for them. I don't waste supplies. So you just want to stick all the rhinestones on, finally ending with the smallest size you have to fill in basically as much as you can on the nail so that it is fully covered. And as the reason that we did the underdrawing, when you could just do this in rhinestones, is so that if there are like little gaps, they don't show up into like the eye when you're just looking at it. And then finally, before you cure, I'm just using the edge of my brush to push everything off the edges of the nails, and we're sticking that in for fully cure. And we're going to do something similar on the index finger, but we're going to be writing the word twice. And then with all things, what I like to do is start with the middle letter. The word twice is nice because it has, 5 letters, so it's easy to find the middle. So we're doing the I here. I realize, like, in retrospect that I probably should have moved it down slightly because I make the W a bit thick. And so, like, the T's a little closer to the edge than I would like for the final. But I think, to be honest, I did a pretty okay job because I'm not that good. Listen, my handwriting in real life is terrible. And, it's sort of funny that I'm like, you know what I should do now when I have the world's worst handwriting is to try to do it smaller with a tiny brush. That sounds like a really smart idea that someone would have. But anyway, we're going to be writing the letters here. I've left the entirety of me writing it so you can see how sort of painstaking it can be to write. I feel like a smarter thing would be as soon as I'm happy with a letter to flash cure it so that I don't accidentally mess it up. But luckily with this one, I didn't screw up any of the letters as I continued. But as you can see, I made that W a little bit of a wide situation. So the T's a little squashed there at the end, but that's not too bad. I still think the vibe works. And then once you're done with the text and you're happy with how it looks, stick it under the lamp once more. If you were wanting to make these nails for yourself. Now I'm doing something a little bit different than I did with the other nail. Because it's like so specific with the text, I really wanted to have the rhinestones like fully adhered into place before I went in with the pearls so they didn't like get moved around and make the letters kind of wonky. So I'm actually taking the the Ivy Fix gel. It is by Jinbei, but the Ivy Fix gel, and I'm putting in the going over the letters, and I'm just going to be doing the rhinestones in the smallest size over them first. And then I'm going to cure that before going in with the pearls. So I'm going in with the smallest rhinestone I had in this color. These are the same rhinestones that I used for my Valentine's Day set. I had a lot of them, so I was like, you might as well reuse them. But the smallest ones, I feel like I wish they had been like a little bit smaller. They would have been perfect for this, but it still works out. You can still read that it says twice, and I think that's all that really matters. So once you've jimmied them all into shape, stick in one more there on the E. You want to put them all under the lamp for a full cure before going in with the pearls to fill in the rest. So now I'm taking the Ivy Fix gel, and we're just going to be going around basically the rest of the letters. This worked really pretty well. And then we're just sticking on, like, with the same technique as the thumb, going in with the biggest pearls first, and then moving on towards the smallest one to fill in the gaps. Picking these up was a bit of a struggle. Now I will say I do have like a silicone placemat on my desk, which for most things works incredibly. But it turns out rhinestones and pearls love to stick to it. which was like a bit annoying, but we made do. So we're just going to be filling in the entirety of this with the pearls again. And then always I like to take the brush and sort of push against, like with the handle of the brush, just push against the edges of the nail from time to time to make sure that the pearls aren't sliding directly off of the nail as they like to do. My camera was struggling, as was I. The amount of times that these pearls, you would pick them up perfectly, and then when you were putting them down, they would just magically flip over, was incredible. It was like they were out to get me. But this does work. So it does take so long. Again, this is not accurately saying how long these nails took. Each one took about 40-ish minutes, I would say. But I think the final result was nice. So we're going to cure those, and we're going to work on the ring finger, which is the final fully rhinestoned nail. And with this one, I'm doing like a swirl pattern. Because the original Twice light stick had like this sort of candy swirl to it, which doesn't really look like this swirl, but I was sort of trying to evoke the swirl on their original light stick. I have listened to Twice, I think since about their debut. I remember watching their first music video, like not that long after it came out, and being like, oh, these are the girls, like, and I fell in love with it immediately. So we're just going to be, yet again, doing the rhinestone pearl thing. Putting the Ivy Fix gel all over the nail. And then with this one, actually, we're going to be doing a bit of a different. We're not actually going largest to smallest on the rhinestone portion. I'm actually going smallest to largest because as the spiral sort of comes out, I wanted the rhinestones to get bigger. So like the smallest at the center and then larger as they circle out. And with the exception of the very tiny bit on the cuticle edge, which I did initially put large rhinestones on and then realized, oh, too big, and switched them to small ones. I think the effect is really quite cool because it really feels like it's got like a dimension to it. The spiral, I think, was the easiest. This was the easiest one to put rhinestones on, though. Because they don't have to sort of make round shapes fit square designs. You know what I mean? So this worked. This was really... I think the spiral turned out really nice. And do recommend the rhinestone spiral in your future endeavors. And now we're going in with the pearls. But I am actually just going random sizes at this point. Just... mostly starting with big, going to small. But as of this point, my room's kind of heating up, as you can see. Because I'd been in there for a while. And I don't really... my nail room is just in my office. And it's not a particularly large room. So the amount of... so I'd been in there for at least 2 hours at this point. And it was getting... my frustrations were growing, as was my, sweatiness. So things were getting a bit heated. So they were... the rhinestones were moving around a bit more than they were on the previous nails. They were sliding about. I think this nail did go the quickest, though. I think it only took about half an hour rather than 40 plus minutes. So I suppose it does help that it did have smaller, surface area than the other ones. But the design was a little easier to jimmy things around in. And then once you've got everything in there, you just sort of do the same thing where you tap, I'm pushing from the edges so that it's not bulking up the edges to finish it up, sticking all the little ones where there's a few little gaps here and there. And I think this nail looks super cool personally. And I'm going to send it into cure. So now we've got the middle finger and the pinky finger. I've created these 2 decals. If you want to know how I create decals, I made a whole video about it. These are of my bias in Twice, Jeongyeon. She's so cool. I love her energy. I think that she's just awesome. And I think I sort of became her bias in a sort of weird way for a very long time. I don't know if the stylist had something against her or something, but was styling her atrociously compared to all the other girls. And I just sort of like fell in love because she just, you know, she was working so hard. She's such a great dancer and singer, and she was just putting in all the effort, but to be sort of just put in some of the most just unflattering situations. And it was just like, wow, you're really trying to make her not be able to look as good as the rest of the group. What's going on here? And I felt that in my bones. And so I just sort of fell in love with her, and she just seems like such a genuinely cool person. Like, obviously, I'm not that parasocial of a person. I don't really know anything about her than what she shows, but what she shows seems really nice. And as always, sticking these decals on, you just dunk it, slide it off the decal paper. Whee! And then you stick it on the nail, and then smooth and pat it down. And then use a file, and you want to file off sort of like in the opposite direction of it so that it's sort of pulling it around the edge of the nail as you're filing. Now, normally I would like seal these with base coat and then do the rest of what I'm doing, but I was so tired of nails at this point that I'm just going straight in with the Ivy Fix gel, and the rhinestone glue will also be the sealing of these decals. And it did work really well. And I think I might do this sort of shortcut in the future as well, for if I'm also putting a few rhinestones on top of decals. Because it worked fantastic. And also like the Ivy Fix gel is non-wipe, so like you could, like there's no reason why you couldn't use it for this purpose, but I'm being very careful to fully get all the edges to seal it in. And then I'm just going to stick like a few rhinestones and pearls on to tie it in with the rest of the nails. I say a few as though I don't proceed to put a bunch on, but they're just sort of scattered, just sort of have a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of a vibe to them. Now these rhinestones I'm using are incredibly cheap rhinestones. They're just from AliExpress, so when I top coat over them in the next step, don't get mad at me, but I'm pretty sure if I didn't, they would be rubbed away to nothing as I wore the nails. But I'm sticking the pearls on. Just a few here and there. Give it a little bit of cute little bling energy to it. And we're gonna do the same on the pinky. Move them around to where they look interesting. Just doing the same on the pinky. The pinky will have less, obviously, because it's a much smaller nail. And boy, was I struggling with staying in the camera and in focus and picking up rhinestones with this one. But I think that showing how, like, you struggle in the process of learning things really is important. Okay, so that's done. We're sticking in for cure. And we're going to top coat, as always, going in with the Jinbei Crazy Top. It's my favorite top coat. I've tried a bunch. I like potted over bottles, personal preference, and the Jinbei Soft and Standard are my 2 favorite that I've found so far. But I haven't tried the new Zombie King one, but maybe I should pick it up. But yeah, so as I was saying, I think it's really important to show the process of struggling in any art that you make, and from going from being, because I'm like okay at nails. I'm not a nail wizard by any stretch of the imagination. I just really genuinely enjoy it. And I think that's important, especially in this age with, like, you know, all of these corporations trying to make AI a thing and devalue human effort in a sort of, you know, the pursuit of profits. It's important to show people that, like, there's joy in the act of being kind of bad at things and trying and, like, working towards being good at things. That's, like, pretty much most of the human condition. Now, as I was saying, these are very cheap rhinestones, very cheap little charms pearls. So I'm just covering over them. With the pearls, you want to like top coat over them anyway, or they will rub away basically the iridescent color on them. But these rhinestones, I'm pretty sure if I didn't top coat them, they would also just sort of fade away into nothing with normal wear. But make sure on the decal ones that you get all the edges. You want that fully top coated in, and send that in for the final cure. Flipping it over to make sure that nothing runs towards the edges. And look at these. These are so fun. My friend's trying to get me tickets to the concert. It's been a bit of a struggle because they're hitting up my town soon, but I might be able to go. And if I do, I'll let you know how fun it was. But I made these just in case he can get tickets for us. He's working on it. And I think that they turned out really cute. But yeah, so thank you for hanging out with me today as I made some nails. I will be back next week with some, who knows, I think some spring type nails. Hope that the snow goes away. And I hope you have a fantastic week. Please like and subscribe, all those things. And I'll see you next time. Bye.